Alright, what is up everyone? It is Tuesday afternoon and I just finished my surgery rotation. Now I'm not fully done because we still have to finish out the week with an OSCE and my exam, but today was my last clinical day in the hospital actually doing surgeries. So it's our last week of our surgery rotation. We only do an 8-week rotation, which is a little unfortunate because it's a little bit shorter than some other schools. We rotate with some schools from SGU, which is one of the Caribbean schools, and they get 12 weeks. But that's just how our school is set up. We have 3 8-week rotations, which are internal medicine, family medicine, and then surgery. But yeah, I'm almost done, which is kind of crazy. Monday of this week was kind of like just a study day. Usually Mondays of our surgery rotation, we have core curriculum, which means we'll have virtual lectures or in-person stuff for a half day or a whole day. So we had the same thing yesterday. However, since it's our exam week, all we really had in terms of an obligation was an optional review session for the shelf with our clerkship director. We just went over one of the practice exams that is given out by the NBME. So that was pretty helpful, but other than that, we just had the whole day to study, which was really nice. Honestly, the shelf exam for surgery is very similar to the internal medicine exam, so it's nice that I came straight from IM and now I'm doing surgery. The only bad thing is IM was really tough, which means surgery is also going to be tough. You have to know a little bit about a lot of different organ systems. It's not like OBGYN where it's really focused. And I was a little surprised to hear that the surgery shelf is very similar to the internal medicine one because the specialties themselves are completely different. However, what you need to know and are tested on the shelf is completely different from what you do every day in the surgery rotation. There's not a lot of surgical skills or steps of a surgery content on the shelf, which is a lot of what you need to know in person. When you're walking into a surgery, you really need to know the anatomy and know what the purpose of the surgery is. But like I said, it's not really tested on the shelf. Really what they focus on is still a lot of pathophysiology of common conditions, knowing the indications for when someone needs a surgical intervention rather than a medical one. Post-op complications are pretty big. Triaging trauma cases is also pretty big. There's definitely going to be several questions on that. And then generally just medical things that can go wrong with surgical patients. So a lot of the time it's either cardiac stuff like heart attacks, pericarditis, or respiratory stuff, ARDS, so just generally respiratory failure. So you need to know a little bit about vent management. So it's a lot. As I mentioned, today's Tuesday and I'm sort of done with the hospital. Tomorrow we're also given a study day, which I think the students before us didn't really get, which sucks for them, but thankful for us. And then Thursday is actually our exam, which is different than internal medicine. We had our OSCE on Thursday and then the exam on Friday. So, we're losing that one day of studying. I'm still not sure which setup I like better because as of right now, all I'm focused on is the exam. And then after the exam, then I'll worry about the OSCE. Thankfully, the OSCEs at this point aren't too stressful because we see patients all day, every day. It's not in sort of the standardized setting that the OSCE is going to be, but they're a lot less stressful now than they were in preclinical just because we have so much actual real clinical experience. Alright, so it is Wednesday, day before my exam. Thankfully we get the day before our shelf off just to study. I didn't get that for IM, so it's nice to not have to worry about any clinical responsibilities the day before the exam. Just get to have a full day of studying and focus. So it's definitely a bittersweet feeling to know that I'm probably not going to be in the OR for the next 6 months or so. Part of me is glad to be through this. It was a tough 8 weeks in terms of having to be at the hospital at 5 a.m. I would wake up at 4:15 every day. I will be happy to have a little bit less sleep deprivation.
a little bit more free time, but I know I'm gonna miss the OR. I just don't think that I could have, a 30, 40-year career with never stepping back in the OR. And I talked to the clerkship director about that. We do a little like end of clerkship review check-in kind of thing, and he was like, yeah, that kind of sounds like you're gonna end up in some sort of surgical specialty. That was the same thing that happened to me during my surgery clerkship when I was, a third year. I just had a feeling towards the end of it that, I didn't want this to be it in terms of being in the operating room. So, like I said, I have the day off. Just been studying all day. I got up around like 5 to study a little bit at my place, and then I wanted to get out of my house because I'm just never as productive if I'm sitting at my desk with my bed right there. It's a lot easier for me to slack off. So I went over one of the old practice exams, and then I drove about 10 minutes to the beach. Very lucky to live close to the beach. There's a beach town called Asbury, like I said, about 10 minutes away. So went to a nice coffee shop there, went over another exam, did some practice questions, and I walked down here to the beach. Unfortunately, not the nicest day, but hopefully in the next month or so, it's gonna warm up enough to actually be able to spend some time out here. And then obviously the summer is gonna be really nice. I have neuro and psych, which are some chiller rotations, so I should be able to spend a good amount of time out here. This was honestly one of the biggest reasons I picked the South region for rotations. Is I've never lived close to the beach. I don't know if I'll ever have this opportunity again. A lot of residencies are sort of situated in big metropolitan areas, so that means I might not live close to the beach. So I wanted to take the opportunity while I could to be a 10-minute drive from the beach. So from here, I think I'm gonna head to the hospital actually. There's a nice library there where a lot of people study, especially for exams, so I'll probably spend a few hours there, maybe do one more practice test, and then that's probably gonna be pretty much it for the day.
Alright, it is Saturday, so now I am officially done with my surgery rotation. So we had our shelf exam on Thursday morning at 8:30, I think. I think we had to be there at 8, but honestly, it didn't go that great. Well, we don't know yet because we don't have our results, but everyone thought it was extremely difficult. The general consensus that I've heard from other med students doing my own research is the surgery shelf is supposed to be easier than the IM shelf. It's, similar, but you are focusing on more of the medical aspects of surgery instead of just medicine in general. But for whatever reason, this one was really tough. After taking all the practice exams, we could really predict what the exam was going to be like. We knew there were going to be 3 bowel obstruction questions. We knew there were going to be a bunch of trauma questions where you had to know if you should get an ultrasound, send the person right to the OR, or get a CT. We knew there were going to be several post-op fever questions, probably one about pneumonia, probably one about a transfusion reaction, maybe a PE. So there was a lot of bread and butter stuff that we thought was going to be on the exam. And there was, but the proportions were completely out of whack. Instead of having 5 of the bread and butter bowel obstruction questions, there was only 1. There really wasn't a lot of the pediatric questions that we knew, about congenital stuff. Different causes of bilious vomiting, like pyloric stenosis or duodenal atresia. I don't think we had really anything like that. Seems like what they did was they took a normal practice exam, which was 50 questions, and then just added on 60 questions of harder, rarer stuff. There was honestly a lot of OBGYN content. We were used to doing breast questions because that, was a really big part of surgery. You get to breast surgery through a general surgery residency. So there's a lot about like evaluating breast lesions and then, what to do with them from a surgical perspective. So there were a few of those, which was fine, but there was a lot of complications from like OBGYN surgeries, like hysterectomies, which we didn't see at all. I feel like if we would have done our OBGYN rotation before this, we would have been a lot more prepared for that, but it really was not part of the U world or what we saw on a day-to-day basis. There was even questions about like a trauma patient, but they were pregnant, so you had to know like, oh, do you try to take care of the fetus, by getting a fetal heart rate, or do you take care of the mother? So that was a pretty tough one where, like I said, in our 8 weeks of doing hundreds, if not thousands of practice questions and being in the hospital 12 hours a day, we really didn't have any experience with that. So that was pretty tough. Like I said, we don't have our actual score back. So that was Thursday, and then Friday was our OSCE, which was not bad at all. It was 3 encounters. 2 of them were like the traditional, working up a complaint in an ER or like a consult from a person who was already admitted. So those really weren't too bad. And then the third one was kind of like a skills station where it was a patient who got a laceration and they're in the ED. So you had to go like ask, how do you get the laceration? And then really what it was practicing suturing. So we didn't suture on the standardized patient. There was a suture pad, which, everyone got at the beginning of the clerkship. So we were used to suturing on that kind of material. So basically we just had to do some simple interrupted sutures to close the laceration. So once again, that wasn't too bad. After the OSCE, I came home and we actually got together with a bunch of classmates. A few people came over and we went out, which is something very rare, especially in clerkships. People are so busy and like on different schedules based on the rotation that you're on that it's really hard to see people. But, similar to preclinical, after an exam is a good time to do that, just because we know that no one is going to be in the hospital or needing to study for anything. We had a bunch of people come over. Most of the people were either in surgery rotation or another one of the 8-weekers, because we all kind of finished at the same time. If you're not in the 8-week rotations, you're in 6-week rotations, and I think they were like kind of halfway through the rotation, so it was a good time for them because they weren't needing to cram for their exams. So yeah, it was really nice. Got to see a lot of people that I haven't seen for a long time. Some people who were up north for their rotations, so once again, like, we just never get to see them because they're not around. So we went out, had a great time. I'm really glad I was able to unwind with some classmates that I haven't seen in a while. It's honestly pretty bittersweet that I'm done with surgery. There's gonna be some positives. I'm moving on to family medicine, and I'm probably gonna start at like 8:30 or 9 every day instead of 5 in the morning. So I'm gonna be able to get a lot more sleep. Just generally is gonna be a little bit less stressful, but I am definitely gonna miss it. I came into school thinking I might be interested in surgery, and I think my surgery rotation definitely confirmed that. I'll keep an open mind throughout the rest of my core rotations, but I just don't think that can be the last time that I'm in the OR for the rest of my career. We don't get a lot of experience with anesthesia, so maybe that is a way that I could be in the OR, but honestly, I do think that I'm gonna end up in some sort of surgical specialty. Thankfully, I do still have OBGYN to do. That's my last rotation. And those physicians are surgeons in their own right, so I'll have a lot of OR experience that time as well, but for the next 6 months, it's gonna be no OR for me. Family medicine is gonna be very different from surgery. For one, I'm gonna be able to get a lot more sleep. I'll be able to get on more of a solid workout routine. If I start at 9, and depending on how far the office is from my house, might be able to go to the gym beforehand, which is pretty crazy. Because I haven't done that since rotation started, and that's something that I did in preclinical, so I'm excited to hopefully be able to get back to that. And then obviously just the day-to-day subject matter of family medicine versus surgery is so different. So while I will miss the OR, I am excited to move forward and continue experiencing different specialties. Alright, well, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like below and subscribe if you want to see videos like this in the future. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.